what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We are on episode 76. Justin, how are you today?
I'm fantastic.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that's going on in your life new other than the same old, same old?
Baby slept in her crib last night, not in our room.
Cool.
That was cool.
When does that milestone usually happen? Again, never had a baby, so fill me in.
Neither have I. We anywhere between 3 and 4 months, everybody seems to be saying they try it. So she started out in our room last night, and then, in the middle of the night when we did our first feeding, had her in the nursery feeding her, and just later she went back to sleep, so just laid her down in her crib, turned the noisemaker on, shut the door, and she's been good. She slept all night. Slept till like almost 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because like the whole baby thing is very, very terrifying to me.
Yeah.
And when I think about it, like I get anxiety just because that's a human life and it's fragile, and I feel like there's so many ways you could screw it up. And then, honestly, I look at people that, for all intents and purposes, you think probably may have a difficult time raising a kid, and the kid turns out fine.
Yeah.
So I think that I could probably handle it. But I feel like I would become, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I would become obsessive over
The details.
essentially everything.
Yeah.
Like, when should they do this? When do I do this? How do I do this? Like, almost like read every self-help book or every manual on babies known to mankind.
It's funny because I'm the planner, so you would think that I would be that way.
Uh-huh.
But my wife she reads constantly. She's trying to be one step ahead on everything, and you would think that I would be the one. But I'm like, let's just live in it, let's just let this happen naturally. Because, I don't want to predict what's coming next. You know what I mean? Like, as much as I do, I know that you start predicting it, you start skipping it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to miss a thing.
Kind of like looking ahead to the next step,
right?
And forgetting about the step that you're on or whatever.
And then, to kind of touch on the almost like paranoia you think you will have. You do, but it's really easy to shut it down in the moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we had our, a couple months, 2 months ago, we had our first trip to the ER. She didn't get hurt or nothing. She was just puking a lot. And, my wife was concerned that, something was wrong. So she felt like we needed to go. And I was like, let's just go. Let's just go and see. It's not going to hurt nothing. You know what I mean? Like, we have insurance, so it's not going to hurt anything at all. Let's go and see what they have to say.
Dude, that's the part above all. And I've talked with people that I know about this. That's the part that would freak me out the most. It's like the hypochondriac in me, that when the baby starts crying, like, there's a multitude of reasons why the baby could potentially be crying.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to figure out if it's tired, it's hungry, or there's something really, really wrong with it?
Yeah.
You never know. You can't speak to them and ask for feedback.
Exactly. I know this might not be orthodox, but I've come up with a checklist for me. Like with Sutton, I just, if she starts crying, first thing I do is I pick her up and just kind of hold her. And I don't, before everybody jumps on me, I don't just scoop her right up 7 seconds after she starts crying. Let her cry for a minute or something. I make a bottle because they last 2 hours. So when she starts crying, I go make a bottle because within the next 2 hours, almost any time she's going to be eating.
Yeah. And
then I'll pick her up and just hold her for a couple seconds. A lot of times it's that. She just hey, why am I not being held? I kind of want to be held right now, So that might do it. If that doesn't do it, smell her butt. Does she need changed? And if that's not the case, or that is, change her. Most of the time that'll fix it. But if it's not that she wants to be held, not that she wants her, her butt changed, try to feed her.
Yeah. If
she eats, that fixes it because it puts her to sleep. So she was either tired or hungry, and we crossed the bridge, and it seems like she only gets fussy really almost within that hour of feeding.
Every time we have a topic, I always go to sports analogies or training analogies or bodybuilding analogies. Things that I understand that in essence, I can put into my own words and put into my world. So that way, when you say these things, I try to make it quasi relatable.
Yeah,
to me,
absolutely.
As relatable as you can as to having a child. And I think that that's how it is in coaching. If you have somebody nutritional coaching or performance coaching, when you have somebody that presents with a specific issue, like a nutritional issue, let's say it's a digestive concern, you always, I was always taught to seek out the low hanging fruit first. So find out what the most plausible causes, because it could be anything. It could be thousands of different things. It could be multiple things contributing to it. So it may not just be one answer, it may be 3 or 4 different answers. Right. But regardless, what you do is you find the one that's probably the most common and then try to fix that or alleviate it. And if that doesn't rectify or mitigate the issue, then you go on to something else that's very common. I mean, I'm sure it's the same way in the medical community. If someone...
Process of elimination.
Yeah, sure. If someone comes in with flu-like symptoms, then you look for the flu being the first, order of business, determining if that's it, and then you kind of progress from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that the checklist is probably, a smart idea. And like anything, experience is the best teacher. You just baptism by fire.
Yeah.
We talked about it before, because people tell me about the bodybuilding stuff is they say they want to do a show when they're ready. And I always say, you're never going to be ready to do your first show. It's baptism by fire.
Right.
You have to just commit to doing it now. Otherwise, because if you wait till you're ready, you'll never be ready. There's several different items that I kind of throw into that category. So bodybuilding would be one, marriage would be one, having a child would be one.
Yeah.
Those are things that you're never truly ready for. Or like I said, if you wait until you think that you're ready, that moment will never come.
Absolutely. It really won't. Even with I can speak on the having the child thing.
Yeah.
We always said we wanted to, have a good house, have good dependable vehicles, be in established careers,
sure,
financially be ready. And if we were trying to wait for all of those ducks to get in a line, we wouldn't have her still.
Yeah.
It was we got to a point where we were almost 30 and we were you're never going to be 100% ready. We're 90, we're there. We're just on the cusp. So let's just try it. And I think that was something that really resonated with me because we always said we were going to wait until we were ready.
Yeah.
Because we never wanted to be them parents that had to pawn our kid off on everybody or mom or grandma and grandpa on both sides had to basically buy all the formula and buy all the clothes and all that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that because I think it takes a village to raise a family, but we're very independent people. And we wanted to try to be as ready as possible. And like you said, you're never going to be ready. If we were waiting to be ready, we still would be waiting.
There's always a little bit part of me that kind of looks for potentially, the way that I can word it is, looks to make sure that I'm not being foolish by jumping into something.
Right.
So a lot of successful people that we've spoken to, that we've been blessed to have the opportunity to speak to, they a lot of times will talk about making the jump and going all in and, essentially forgetting everything else except for what you're going to go all into and make the jump right now. Don't plan to make the jump because like we alluded to earlier, if you make a plan to make the jump, it's never going to happen.
Right.
But I sit back and maybe this is why I'm limited in my successes as far as how I would view myself. Maybe this is why I'm not as successful as I think that I could or should be. But I feel like there's reservations or hesitations on my end just because you look at not doing something stupid and possibly making your situation worse.
Right.
So if you're going to jump, let's create a hypothetical scenario where I was to leave education and strictly become a personal trainer. Okay. So if I was in that situation and I made that jump and that determination without understanding, how my finances are aligned and making sure that financially I was in a position where I could do so without having to cut back on anything, or possibly you do cut back on stuff, but nothing that needs paid goes left unpaid.
Right.
So, whether it's house or car or bills or whatever, that stuff, all the basic necessities and living needs get met. And sometimes, I've been told or I've talked to people that are successful that say sometimes you need to make a jump when it's an uncomfortable situation or when it's not a guarantee, because then it forces you to improve at a more rapid rate than you could have.
Right.
Kind of like with bodybuilding. If you force yourself, in essence, to do a show, and you say, I'm going to do this show, and then you're going to make sure that you're ready because you have a date. Right. Whereas you say, I'll probably do one next year when I'm ready. There's no date. So when there's no tangible deadline, you're not going to work as hard as you probably should have. Yeah, so it forces you to improve quickly.
I find it very weird that our brains work so much alike. I wish that people could realize that we literally don't talk about this stuff beforehand. Because when you started talking about that, I was in my head thinking, I'm definitely going to say something about there's not a problem planning as long as you have a hard line. Yeah. Like, this is the day, this is the time. Someday things are going to happen, but you have to have that phrase someday has to have a time.
Well, people are so useful, at least for me, I view people as a tool for accountability. Yeah. So when I say I'm going to do something, because you can make excuses in your own head. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I could be wrong, but I think the more intelligent you are, I feel like the more easy or the more rational your excuses can possibly become. So like if I were to cheat on my diet and I eat junk food, like let's say I eat a cheeseburger, for me, I could rationalize that or justify that 100 different ways. Mm-hmm. Say that, I was behind on my macros, or I was looking a little flat today and I felt like I needed to fill out, or I just got done training a bigger body part, so I needed kind of like some carb backloading, or whatever it is. Whatever you can make excuses. Whereas if you have that hard deadline and then you're open with people about sharing that hard deadline, then there's a little bit more pressure. So people can come up to you and kind of say, hey, Justin, you said you were going to do this. Charlie, you said you were going to do that. Right. And I like that. I enjoy, I don't really look at it as pressure, but I mean, I like when there's accountability. Absolutely. From other people for me, because there's things that I've had to do that I haven't done. And then I look back and say, that's not a good excuse, because my excuses, at least from what I see, my excuses that I give, ironically enough, I'm not a big fan of them, but it's always time predicated. Yeah. So I'll say, well, I didn't get that done, but that's because I didn't have time because I did X, Y, and Z, which anybody that knows me, and I would hope that my work ethic is transparent. I hope that people could see that it's not just me not getting stuff done because I'm scrolling through social media or I'm lying in bed sleeping. I mean, there's a legit reason. Yeah. However, that still falls back on me because then I bit off more than I could chew. Right. So if it is a timing or a scheduling issue, then that's also my fault because I shouldn't commit to something that I can't do. If my client load is too big and I can't manage it, then I need to be transparent with people and say, hey, I can't train you right now. My caseload is too big. Right now I'm a little bit overworked, and I don't think I'm going to give you the quality and the time and the attention that you're paying for.
Right, absolutely. That's like the epitome of extreme ownership.
Yeah, for sure.
Knowing your boundaries and not exceeding your boundaries. Like, don't put more on your plate than you can eat. It's so important.
That's hard because I know from personal experience, and I'm sure everybody has this in some degree of life, even if it's just your job and working overtime. Everybody has that breaking point or that threshold, which is too much. I would be willing to bet, and I'm just throwing, arbitrary numbers out there. I would say probably 75% of people, 100% of people have a problem. Yeah. I would say 75% of them, their problem is they're way below what their capacity is. Mm-hmm. And then I would say the other 25% are way above their capacity is. I would think that I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm above and below. I don't think anybody constantly is able to, you're never going to, like I said, it's 100% of people that have that problem. Yeah. I don't think anybody is constantly at the exact maximum work and output level, energy expenditure and all that they can do, because it's highly variable every week. Absolutely. Like let's say you are the perfect planner and everything is teed out to the second, and then your tire goes flat on the way to work. Well, now all of a sudden you got that problem,
and that whole day's off.
Yeah. So, and then which could possibly create a domino effect where the next day's off and the next day and then the week and so on and so forth. So I feel like everybody has that problem. I think that most people would probably be in the 75%, obviously being the number of people that are below the threshold and need to do more, or potentially could do stuff more efficiently, or whatever it is. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the 25%, where sometimes I bite off more than I can chew. I make sure, though, here's one of my convictions that I gotta have, is I make sure that if I do put myself in a scenario where I bite off more than I can chew, I always throw out my portion. So if I'm working with clients and, let's say I'm teaching, I'm training, I'm coaching, and then I have my own stuff, like my diet, my nutrition, my training, the things that I do to self-improve. I will always miss my workout or my meals before I allow a paying client to, have a less than ideal experience because of me at my helm. Now, you could look at that and you could probably make the argument that for me, that's why I haven't maximized personal growth, because when I take away from myself every time, well, then that's going to show.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword, because we talk about being selfish to the point of we have to do the best for us so we can do the best for everybody else.
Yeah.
But at what point does that really get to, like, at what point does that really get to happen, right? Because if I make a contract, or if I shake your hand and say, okay, I'm going to work with you, this is what I'm paying you, blah, 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 at that point, you are obligated to give them the best too.
Yeah.
So, like, it comes down to time management and planning. Like, you have to plan like them blocked out time frames for yourself in whatever it is you're doing. I mean, I'm just trying to look at your situation, like what you were saying there. Like, somebody, like you said, somebody's got to get cheated.
Yeah.
And you're definitely not going to cheat your client.
Mm-hmm.
So in the future, you would probably look towards like, okay, this day of this week, I overbooked myself.
Yeah.
So I took from my journey. I took from my happiness. If I do that every day, it's going to show, it's going to reflect in my work. So I have to make sure I fix that.
And I think that's why, for me, when we talked about New Year's resolutions, because we've touched on them a couple times, I even posted something you probably saw on my Instagram where I asked people, I said, how are you guys doing on your New Year's resolutions? I got a lot of really good responses. I didn't post any of them. I just wanted to, read for my own entertainment. And it seems like people are definitely killing it. I had a lot of people that said they were kind of ahead of schedule, which is awesome. And then we had a few people that, I love the transparency here. And the honesty, said that, they kind of let them go a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is inevitable that's going to happen. Yeah. But you're never going to fix it unless you recognize that.
Exactly.
So if you're cognizant of the fact that you're letting this go, that's the first step. But yeah, so in regards to the New Year's resolutions, the reason I brought that up is because one of the whole thesis of everything that I said New Year's resolution wise was I wanted to get better at what I'm doing. I know that sounds like kind of obvious, but there weren't really new things that I wanted to do or things that I wanted to do that were different. I just wanted to do things differently.
Right.
Meaning, how can I become a better teacher? How can I become a better coach? How can I become a better, athletic trainer or performance trainer? All those things. And for me, it was kind of centered around becoming more efficient. So I wouldn't run into the issues that I was running into every now and then about overbooking. And, for me, the one thing that sucked is I had a tough time telling people no.
Right.
So sure, I can work, 10 hours on a Sunday. Oh, wait, I need to fit in another client. Okay. 11 and a half hours it is.
Yeah. So,
or whatever the time frame is.
And then at what point would you fit your meal prep in?
Yeah.
And that's how I would look at it. Like, because Sundays have always been my meal prep day. And, that's one area that I have, on my New Year's resolutions, right? That's one area that I have fallen short is my time management has gotten a little bit less than optimal having a child. I'm not blaming it on her. It's a learning curve. I believe that I'm slowly getting it to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
But like I always set aside 4 or 5 hours on Sunday to grocery shop and then do my meal prep for the week. And we just haven't quite dialed that in yet, fitting it into the schedule with having a child.
It's like we started the show, experience is the best teacher.
Yes.
So you're going to have to, we knew, at least and we talked about it on air, is you're going to have some difficulty navigating that stuff
Right.
initially. Every time, I take on new clients, I have to navigate how I'm going to fit them all in. So here's a good example. West Virginia sports, we talked about the past couple episodes or several episodes over the past few months. Because of COVID, those winter sports got pushed back in West Virginia. And winter sports in West Virginia, where a lot of my athletes are, didn't start until winter sports for Pennsylvania and Ohio were pretty much done. So then they kind of mushed winter sports into a short time frame where the athletes were playing multiple games a week. And then they did the same thing with spring sports in West Virginia. So a lot of my kids that I train from West Virginia are two-sport athletes, basketball players and baseball players, or basketball players and softball players, or whatever. So I had them they had to take a bunch of time off from the gym for a couple months while they were playing their sports. Usually we do in-season training with all my clients, but at that point, when you're playing 3 games a week and every practice is a double session because you're going from basketball practice to softball practice, or you're going from softball practice to basketball practice, they say, well, maybe we can come in on Sundays. And really it boils down to, no, you shouldn't come in on Sundays. Right. The last thing you need is more systemic stress. You need good nutrition, you need a lot of sleep, and you need rest at that point. But regardless, one of the things that I'm going to have to navigate, and I had the foreshadowing, I know that this is coming, I have the foresight to see this, is those guys are all done pretty soon. So in a couple weeks, when all the spring sports end, I get a lot of track athletes back. I get a lot of softball athletes back. Got a lot of baseball athletes back. So now, when you look at a pretty loaded schedule, pretty full plate, how are we going to have this? So again, that's kind of me just talking out loud, touching on New Year's resolutions, is continuing to find ways to make things more efficiently. And I know that at some point I'm going to look back and say to myself in 2 years, gosh, you work so unnecessarily hard. There's an easier way. And there's always an easier way. But it's just about finding out what that way is.
And I don't like finding the easier way immediately.
No,
I enjoy, and it sounds like almost sadistic, but I enjoy the pain and suffering of going through the hardest traveled road, like the path of most resistance versus what nature is, a path of least resistance. Like, I like that harder route because I learn more. Like, I learn more about myself. I learn more about the journey. I learn more about whatever it is I'm doing, with it, work, relationships at home, in the gym, nutritional. Like, I don't mind the hard stuff.
For me, it comes down to the hard stuff is enjoyable for me as well. And I think it's because a sense of accomplishment. Like when I work, and I get home at 10:30 at night and I left the house at 4:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning and I get home at 10:30 at night, those are the days where I'm completely exhausted, but I can lie in my bed and there's almost this sense of comfort. And this sounds really corny, but like there's a sense of comfort. Like, dude, you did everything that you could have done to make today count. Like I did everything. We have a teacher, Coach Lowe, who coaches volleyball at the school that I teach at. She's the high school volleyball coach. She does a ton of work with all of our athletes on the training side of things. She's very involved. I know she's the head of Club Hollywood, which is I believe a nationwide club volleyball team, junior Olympic volleyball program, which she's in the head of like the area with that. So she's very invested in. On social media, she always has this hashtag that she uses, making every day count. Again, it's like a lot of stuff we say, corny and cliche, but there's a fit for that into everybody's life. And when I have these super exhausting, grueling, grinding days, I sit in the bed right before sleep and I think, like, made today count.
Yep, absolutely.
I would much rather have the physical exhaustion of work than the mental exhaustion of regret and saying I didn't do anything today.
I agree. And I actually can see that in my life developing more and more and more the farther along I get in this journey. Even during this time where things haven't been as optimal. I get home, like you said, I get up early. I get up really early, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I work all day. If I work a 14, 15, 16-hour day, and then I go to the gym, then I come home and make, clean up the house, clean up the kitchen, whatever it is. And like you said, lay down. And, inevitably my wife says, man, you had a really long day. You're probably exhausted. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of am.
Yeah.
But I can remember years ago coming home after a 10-hour day or a 12-hour day and did nothing before work and nothing after work and being exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And that same feeling, but when I've maximized my time, it's rewarding. It's rewarding to know that you can, what you do to your body, for your mental health, you can get the same feeling out of a lot bigger window of time.
You can.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You utilizing more of the clock for awake stuff than just sleeping.
You're in that 75%.
Yeah.
Where you realize you are capable of a lot more.
Yeah, and I still am.
Yeah.
Still am capable to do so much more. And it's cool to see, as I start to recognize that, I'm like, man, this is intense.
You're putting together the puzzle. And it seems like there's a lot of extra leftover pieces that were included in the box by mistake. Mm-hmm. Those pieces can fit. Yep. You just don't know where they fit yet.
Right.
I don't know where they fit yet. We're still trying to slowly calculate where to place each piece so then we can have the puzzle put together.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something after our commercial break here because there was something that a couple different things that I wanted to touch on when we started talking about accountability on behalf of other people, which is we talk about social media a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that social media accountability is huge for people. And I'm going to actually kind of politely and humbly ask for some accountability on their behalf because there's two things. One's minor and one's kind of major, but I think that I could use harness the power of social media to keep me focused and motivated and accountable. So I want to kind of bring that to the audience's attention when we come back from our commercial break.
As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well.
And we are back from our commercial break. All right, man. So prior to the commercial, you and I we spent the majority or a large portion of the previous recording talking about how we like to be accountable for things.
Right.
And we like when people hold us accountable for things. So I kind of want to go into two different situations with you, two different stories. One is a very minor thing and one is a major thing. So the first story that I have for you is the other day I was thinking to myself that I haven't really set any short-term specific goals lately. Which is ironic considering that's always what I tell people to do and I make my clients do. I haven't set them for myself. I have short-term tracking, I track all my weights, I track my food, I track my body weight, those sort of things, but I haven't set goals.
Right.
So the data is there, but the data, I don't think in my estimation is being pushed.
Yeah.
Because it's just
tracking. There's no direction for it.
Yeah. The car is idling. It's not being driven. Now I am progressing in certain things, obviously. Austin, my coach, would not allow me to continue if I wasn't progressing, but regardless, I said, I need to make some short-term stuff. And I wanted it to be, a little bit, I don't want to say obscure, but I wanted them to be different goals. I didn't want it to be gain X amount of pounds or add this amount of pounds to your bench press or whatever. I kind of wanted stuff that was going to be physically related or fitness related. So something with my nutrition or my training or my health, or I wanted it to be something like that. And so I came up with this random goal, and I can't even tell you the impetus, what kind of sparked this, but I just said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I remember when I had the idea, but I don't know why it necessarily came to my brain that way. And at that time, but I want to be able to do a straddle split. Nice. Completely random, right? So when I was a little bit more athletic than I am now, and a little bit is an understatement. Not that I was very athletic at one point, but I'm very unathletic now. So it's kind of far away from the point that it was at regardless. One of the things that I felt like I was pretty decent athletic trait of mine was flexibility, and being able to move my body well and all that stuff. And I thought, it'd be really cool to be able to do splits again, because I used to be able to do like a forward and backward split. Not easy, and it wasn't pretty. It was difficult to get down there, but I could. I had some range of motion to me. So I said, you know what? I don't think I've ever really been able to do a straddle split well. So that was something that popped in my head, and I said, this is perfect. This is something that I can work on every day. It doesn't require me to be in a special place. It doesn't require me to have any tools. And I can set a relatively short time frame for this, because it's a goal that the harder I work, the more I'm going to, the closer I'm going to get. Because there's some goals that you can set that are so directly correlated with time. So you can, like, let's say you're trying to build muscle. You can only build muscle so fast. And if you're pounding calories and lifting weights more and more and more, there's going to be a point of diminishing returns where you're just getting fatter and breaking your body down.
Right.
So that is more of a goal that needs to be time sensitive in the opposite sense, where it needs to be a long-term goal, because you can only do so much in a certain amount of time. Whereas stretching, I'm sure you could do overdo anything.
Yeah.
But that's something that acutely you're not really going to overdo a whole lot for most people. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do a straddle split. And I haven't set a date yet. It's May 1st. So I was thinking 2 months, because I'm nowhere near a straddle split right now. So this is not something that, like, I'm a couple inches away.
Yeah.
I mean, my groin's pretty high off the ground when I attempt these. So I thought
July 1st.
July 1st. Because that way, I have 2 months. Maybe let's go July 4th. Because then I'll display my straddle split when I get it in a patriotic way.
Nice.
So, okay, we're going to go July 4th. So that was one thing that I wanted to talk about and bring up. And I hope that people call me out on it. I hope that people are like, hey, dude, how's your straddle split going? I just started the other day. And post-workout, I've been doing just basic straddle splits. I'll put my hands. For those of you that don't know what a straddle split is, I'm sure you probably Googled it at this point, despite the name being pretty self-explanatory. But you basically just take your legs out to the side. So it's a sideways split. I've been putting my hands on a bench after my workout and kind of spreading my legs and using the bench to give me a little bit of support. So I'd like keep my weight distributed back over the hips, but not like just forcing myself into like a super, super intense passive range of motion. But I'm doing those. So this is going to be something that I'm really going to have to kind of have an uptick in how frequently I'm working on it and the duration that I'm working on it, especially because 2 months goes very, very quickly. So for the 4th of July, I'm going to be able to do a straddle split.
Well, I guess, you had me thinking there, especially since you did the 4th of July, and it's kind of a big deal for me. I haven't ran, we all know, in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of leaning on that crutch of my hamstring pretty hard.
Join the club.
Yeah. So, but I've recognized the last couple weeks that I'm leaning on a crutch entirely too much. Because
the crutch became a wheelchair, in a sense.
Because I can run into the fire station and not be in pain. I can mow my yard and cut hedges out and work, and I'm not in pain. So I think the hamstring crutch needs to be thrown into wood pile, and I'm going to start running again today. Actually. And by the 4th of July, I'm going to run the first 5K I ever ran again. Because I didn't run any last year.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. So there was no 5Ks last year. So that was a huge deal. And obviously there was people that listen to this and know anything about it. No, there was a virtual ones.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big fan of those. So even if they don't have the Freedom 5K in Chester, I'm going to run a 5K. I run that course.
Now
on the 4th of July.
This is me not pushing. This is a sincere inquiry on my end. I'm just looking for clarification here, because I'm sure that the listeners are probably wondering,
what time I want.
How'd you know I was going to say that? I was just going to ask if there was not necessarily what time you want, but if there was even a time. If it was just because, so I had this conversation with a client of mine who wants to start getting into 5Ks.
Yeah.
She's never really done them and has never been a runner. She's brutally hard worker, awesome in the weight room, lost a ton of weight, definitely very lean now. She's got all these like physical things going for her, these physical traits that she's developing. But she's never done the running thing. And she said that she really wants to do the running thing. And so I told her, I said, well, let's get this going and let's set some times. Mm-hmm. So when you do your mile runs or whatever, because she said I could never do a 5K. I said, well, first of all, you can, because anybody can do a 5K.
God, please tell me you told her my story.
Yes. Okay. This individual, she knows your story.
Oh, is this who I think it is?
Probably.
Yes.
And
she's going to do it with me. I'm going to call her out right now.
And I told her, I said, anybody can do a 5K. I mean, technically, anybody can do a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
You can just sign up and get on stage. But you have to kind of set some parameters, I think, for most people, because now you're not the type of person that would settle for walking the 5K in an hour and then saying, well, I told you guys I'd do the 5K, and then I did the 5K.
Yeah, no.
You know, so, like, I feel like you wouldn't do that, but still it might help to be.
No, I'm going to crunch some numbers. I just crunched some numbers while you were talking.
Okay.
I can remember my average for a year and a half, like 2 years ago, was my average, like, normal training runs were 15-minute miles.
Okay.
So, and that was like average, not pushing. I think.
So that's 45 minutes.
Yeah. So let's go with, 45 and a half. Or 45 minutes, 45, 50 or something.
A little change, yeah.
Let's do, I'm going to set a target goal time of 43:40, which is a 14-minute mile.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've been able to run a consistent 14-minute mile, which for any runners, that's laughable, but not at 340, 350 pounds.
Now, I'm not good at remembering numbers, and I'm also a good friend who likes to push you. So let's say 43.
Yeah.
Instead of 43:40.
43.
43 is easy. I can remember 43. 43:40, you're having a difficult time. I'm one of those people. Medium. I wouldn't remember what I had for breakfast if I didn't have the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get lucky there.
So that's like a median. That's a median time for where my 5K season was in 2019.
Okay.
Because the first one was 59 minutes or 58 and change, and the last one was 39.93.
Yeah.
So I think 42 was my big, the biggest one I had.
Yep, I remember
for the longest
that.
time. Mm-hmm. So let's do 43. Obviously, I'm going to reach for the stars and try to break that 35 minute mark.
Yeah.
43, and I'll be happy and be able to feel like I'm back.
So 4th of July.
4th of July.
You're going to be running 5Ks, and I'm going to be doing splits.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So now everybody hears.
Yes.
And everybody knows that they can reach out to you and I and have, a little bit of an accountability check with us.
You can straight up expect to start seeing more and more and more of my social media presence on the track or on the road or on the trail, huffing and puffing and breathing in your ear again.
Well, I'll do the same thing then with the straddle splits, because I can tell people I'm working at them, but they don't see it. It's tough to believe.
Right.
So I want to be able to be very, very open with people and show people that, hey, I am working on this every day. I'm not just, BSing you and saying I'm working on it and then not working on it.
Quick math here. How old will my daughter be in July? So she was born the 7th of February. So 5 months?
Yep.
5 months?
Almost half a year.
I was gonna add her into that and say I was gonna run it with her, but doctors and professionals all over the world say you can't run with a baby in a stroller until they're 6 months.
Okay.
So the next one.
There you go. And there will be a next one.
Oh, there's going to be. I plan on filming the season again this year, to be honest. I miss it. I loved it so much. The atmosphere, the positivity that crowd gives each other is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So, it's something that I really miss.
I hate running more than anything in this world. Distance running. And when I did 5Ks with you, I felt that energy that you talked about, and I
almost wanted to do it.
I'm going to say this on air. I'm going to admit I almost kind of a little bit liked it.
Yeah, almost kind of.
Almost kind of a little bit.
You liked it.
So the second story that I'm going to get about. I kind of had like not a change of heart, but a change in logic that it's too big of a story on accountability to get into right now because I would monopolize way too much time going into this. So I'm actually going to save it for maybe next episode or the episode after because you and I actually have a guest that's coming on soon. Back on.
Technically a third time.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're having CEO Shannon Knorr. She's the CEO of Beast Mode Baking, which you probably heard if you were listening to the episode in its entirety or multiple other episodes. They're our chief sponsor for our podcast. Shannon, wonderful human being.
Awesome.
You can't really
character.
You can't piece together all the adjectives to describe her. I mean, overcame an eating disability, pregnant as a teenager, dropped out of high school, and then she became a nurse, a professional athlete, and a business owner.
Yep.
I mean, she's a remarkable person, just infectious positivity.
Yes.
Couldn't say enough good things about her. She's going to come back on. With her, kind of what sparked you and I getting her back on is her story was so lengthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that we had, and rightfully so, because she had overcome so much and had done so much, that we had 2 full episodes just talking about her story that you and I really didn't have the privilege or the opportunity to pick her brain at all.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, you tell us what happened. Wow, that's amazing. And then we've said to her for the longest time, we want to get you back on, want to keep, in a selfish way, like we want to learn from you.
Oh, yeah.
Can you help us? So we're going to have her back on. Dates to be determined, but I don't want to say open contact with her because we talk to her regularly, but the dialogue has been put out there that this is going to happen very soon.
Yes.
So that's something for our listeners to look forward to. So I will save this other accountability story for a later date.
Okay.
One last thing that I wanted to add to kind of while we're talking about it is Beast Mode Baking being our primary sponsor. If there's anybody that is listening that is interested in sponsoring the show, having a commercial made, either, we do reads, you do reads, whatever, we can make that happen. So contact Justin and I if you want, your business or your brand put out there. I know that, social media and the internet, there's so much power in being able to spread word and people to, just the word of mouth thing takes on a whole new meaning when you're talking about going viral on the internet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily use that term viral to explain us. It's not like we have millions of listeners, but we quite literally do have thousands of listeners that your product or your brand or your company or whatever service you offer can be, put out to people. So if you're interested in potentially, hooking up with us and doing some type of a sponsorship, we'd be more than happy to talk to you about that.
Yes.
So is there anything else that you would like to add to wrap up this episode here?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do this a lot, like when we talk about a challenge or a goal, but I really urge everybody to look and dig deep, look at yourself, look at what you're doing, and ask, does what you're doing add up to the value of what you want to be done? Right? So, and if it doesn't, challenge yourself. Put a goal out there. Make a goal. Tell Charlie or tell myself. You don't have to put it out there for the world, but tell somebody. It could be your significant other. It could be, a good friend. It doesn't matter, but find yourself an accountability mirror.
Yeah.
Like for lack of better words, David Goggins talks about his accountability mirror, and without me learning about that accountability mirror, I don't know that my journey would have gotten to the point that it's at now.
And I don't know if a lot of us, and I'm talking to myself, I don't want to categorize anybody else but me here, but I think that a lot of people would be in the same boat as me. I don't know if I'm strong enough to just go in the accountability mirror. Right. I think I need the accountability mirror,
right?
But I need someone else there to help me.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's what I mean. Like, create your own accountability mirror. I'm using the air quotes. I wish we were on video, but make them air quotes and make somebody like Charlie has been my accountability mirror for this entire journey. And he's never been somebody that didn't say, hey man, what are you doing? Like when it's time to say that to somebody, you need to be able to do that and expect that from your accountability person.
And the person doesn't even need to be driving hard on you. The person, because there's going to be enough guilt in and of itself that all the person has to do is ask.
Right.
Like, there will be times when I question Justin, and I'm not questioning him. I'm just sincerely asking, hey, man, how was your week? Did you have a good week? And then Justin goes, no, I did not have a good week. And that's not me, hinting.
It's just
or rhetorically asking. I was just genuinely curious. Did you have a good week or did you not have a good week? So we use each other. We hope that you guys would be that accountability check for us as well. And if there's anybody that, we could be an accountability.
I was going to say that. I think I said that early on in the Chasing Dreams podcast. If there's anybody out there that like legitimately needs somebody to bounce, accountability off of, email me, message me on Facebook or on Instagram, look me up. I don't care. You can tag me in something to get my attention. I'm your guy. Like, because I had so many people do it for me, I have to return that favor.
Yeah.
I have to. I'm like morally obligated to. If you need it, I'm your guy. I don't even need to know you. I'm your guy.
I agree.
So
I can do the same.
Yeah.
All right. I think that wraps it up, man.
Yes.
So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 76. We appreciate your listenership. We look forward to hearing from you guys every week, and hopefully we hear from you next week as well.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge and take it all. I'm born to be untamable.